I just remember when I needed to prove it to the world.
I want to film one in the daytime, clear, close-up sighting. I want to see its face, I want to see its eyes.
Of course, we're out there trying to obtain video footage and thermal footage, but why? Because it's a mystery.
Before I took off down the hill, I just turned around and looked at where we just were, and this thing had stepped out of the timber.
It didn't move, it's just standing there.
For decades, people have been dedicating their lives to Sasquatch research. For many, it is an undertaking of great personal significance. But for others, it is an extension of their love for the woods and nature. To get to the heart of why someone would search for Sasquatch requires an examination of their first exposure to the topic, potential encounters with the Sasquatch, and how their life has been affected by that experience. In the entirety of the Sasquatch field, there are few who hold stronger convictions than those of the Olympic Project, and their answers to these questions were both enlightening and moving.
What got me started in Bigfoot was a sighting from about 60 feet when I was 20 years old in August of 1985. So I grew up off-trail hiking in the Olympics, the Olympic National Park. The park is an area where there's still areas that are unexplored. It's about 100 miles by 100 miles. It's a young mountain range, so it's very dramatic. The peaks are crazy sharp, and the climbing is amazing. The trails are amazing, and it's all virgin wilderness, never been logged, so it's very appealing to a hiker. What I did from about 15 on was off-trail in the Olympics. Me and a couple friends of mine would go up so far, and then we would leave trail, just to get away from the trail and just kind of learn how to mountaineer on our own, being young people, and use ropes and do all this stuff. And then once we all could drive, we would end up stashing a car at another trailhead like 20 miles away, and we would be dropped off, and a week later we'd come out where the other car was, you know, and we would just use compasses. Back then there was no GPS or anything like that back then. On this particular trip, I was 20 years old. We were still doing the same thing. And we left from the Staircase Trail up near Lake Cushman, which would be on the eastern slopes of the Olympics. And we drove up late in the day and got kind of a late start. So the three of us were in top shape, and we were fast hikers. So we actually put in almost 7 miles before the sun started to go down, even though we started late. What we would do back in those days is we would leave trail if we were going to camp overnight and get maybe 100, 200 yards to a quarter mile off trail, find a level place and camp there. And the reason was, in the mornings we would always eat breakfast and then explore around, and we didn't want other hikers coming upon our stuff, so we would always camp off trail. So it was just one of those days, and that's what we did. We went up this slope and we found a level bench and then a timber line, and then the mountain progressed up, and it was just beautiful. It was like out of a postcard. So we went up to it, and back in those days I used to carry pruning shears in my backpack because I tried to travel light, you know, as light as I could, because the off-trail stuff was demanding and you don't want to carry a 60-pound pack on your back when you're off-trailing. So I would take my pruning shears and I would go around to hemlock trees and I'd snip hemlock boughs, and I would put them down under my tent for a mattress so I didn't have to carry a pad. So I was in the process of snipping these boughs, and Mike and Jim were rolling their bedrolls out, and we just heard this crash, you know, quartered away and up to the left from us. So we all just stopped and looked, and we're standing there staring, and then this rock flew. And it didn't come in a down angle, it arced and landed about 10 foot to the left of us. And it was probably the size of a softball or so. And in that environment where you're 8 miles up in virgin wilderness, no roads, no people, and something is throwing a rock at you. You know, we had no idea what that something was, but it's very alarming, to say the least. And then another rock sailed and landed to the left of us. And it was like they were being very intelligently placed. And after the whole ordeal, when we looked back, it was like they were obviously not being thrown at us. They were being thrown around us. And then another rock came to our left. Well, by the time the third rock hit, we decided we needed to get the hell out of there. And we still had no clue what we were dealing with. And it was just about dark, so we picked our stuff up off the ground. Literally didn't even take time to put our backpacks on. Just grabbed our stuff up and started running down this mountain back towards the trail without even a clue as to where we were going to go when we hit the trail. And I took about 10 steps, and Jim and Mike were right in front of me, and then I remembered I had a gun in my backpack. And I had no idea if it was what was happening, a person, who knew. So I slid to a stop and got my gun, my .357 out of my backpack, and stood back up. And before I took off down the hill, I just turned around and looked at where we just were, and this thing had stepped out of the timber and was just standing there staring at me. And it changed my life. It absolutely changed my life, rerouted my life. And it was just, at the time, it was just incredibly frightening. I wanted away from it. Didn't want to know what it was. Wasn't even really thinking about what it was. Just wanted out of there. And so down the hill I went. Met up with Jim and Mike at the bottom, and then we ran for about 1.5 miles in the dark with our lamps. And that's as far as we were going to run. It was pitch dark. 3 other hikers were coming from the bottom. And we got there at the same time they did. And I still had my gun in my hand. And we were exasperated. We were almost at a dead run. And we're trying to explain to them what had happened. And then we started hearing noises again up on the ridge as if this thing had paced us. We did go down later and report that to the ranger. Got laughed at. He did tell me that somebody would contact me and talk to me more about it, and nobody ever did. But that was my first experience with Bigfoot.
Forever changed because of this experience, Derek Randles founded the Olympic Project in 2008 as a camera trap project. In more recent years, it has shifted to a multidisciplinary study involving many researchers. One of these researchers is Shane Corson.
When was the first time you ever heard about Bigfoot?
When I was in Scotland, when I lived on a little island called Isla. It's either a TV show, I'm sure it was a TV show. But then again, I mean, I was into Loch Ness Monster. So I heard about Loch Ness Monster, and then I kind of fell in love with cryptids in general. And then from there, you know, you got the Yeti and all that stuff. My mom got me a couple of books on Sasquatch and cryptids in general. So it was in Scotland that I kind of became fascinated with the Sasquatch phenomena. That's when.
Did you ever think you would be looking for it?
Not when I was there in Scotland, no. I moved over here in '93, but not when I was in Scotland, no. That was wasn't even on the radar.
Did you move to look for Sasquatch?
No. My mom's American, my dad's Scottish, and just wanted to come to the States. But landed up in Southern California. Eventually started doing some research up in San Bernardino, Southern California, Yosemite, Sierras. But in my wildest dreams, I never thought I'd be doing that. It was very, very surreal. Very surreal.
Were you always a believer in Sasquatch?
No. I wasn't always a believer in Sasquatch, far from it. I always thought there's a possibility. And I don't even like the word believer. And I don't even like the word knower. I mean, but I do. I know they exist. But it wasn't until 2011 when I actually had an experience and saw one of these things. Up until then, I was like 50-50. Even with the Patterson-Gimlin film, I always thought that was real, but I was like, hey, you just never know. And so I get why there's a lot of skeptics out there, and you need to see it to believe it sort of thing, but yeah, I'm past that point now. I think a lot of us are past that point. We know they're real. It's just like, how do they survive and thrive, and what do they do, and where do they go, and what makes them tick, and It's just learning about them now at this point. I mean, of course, I want to get more footage and all that, but just knowing that anytime, anywhere, they're out here somewhere. You know what I'm saying? Pretty dang cool.
Shane's first possible encounter with a Sasquatch occurred in the Mount Hood National Forest in Oregon. A few years ago, I had the opportunity to visit the exact location with Shane to get an in-depth explanation of what he saw.
So back in August of 2011, a couple of buddies of mine, co-workers, came out here to do some remote backpacking, fishing, came down to this lake to set up camp, and headed out to find some of these other lakes. Circled around up here, up above behind us, which you can't see right now, but there's a big ridge line up here We headed up the wrong direction, got lost up on this ridge line, to the point where we ended up hiking about 17 miles that day. While we were up there, we were seeing bear sign. A buddy of mine, Ian from Boston, was definitely afraid of bears, and so what he would do is he literally brought a pot and pan and would bang them together, to the point of that it really started to irk us, like, you know, stop knocking these pot and pans together. We were all armed, we're good to go. Yes, there's bear up here, but they avoid humans like the plague for the most part. So you put the pot and pans away, but after hiking all day, running out of water, really low in water, arguing with each other and all that, we finally find this other lake, the original lake we're supposed to be looking for. But by that time it was dark. It was getting dark, and so we had a couple mile hike back to this spot we're at now. And so that's what we did. We got on the trail, we made our way back here and built a fire, cooked our food. We talk about our day's next plans, which lakes we're gonna go to. Now that we know where the trail's at, how to find these different lakes, we're gonna make our way to these other areas tomorrow. We go to bed. About 1:32 in the morning, I wake up to what I hear sounds like consistent rock clanking sounds coming down this trail, coming from this direction anyways, getting closer and closer, probably 75 yards away, but getting closer and closer and closer. Ian's snoring away. Mitch wakes up and goes, "Hey Shane, do you hear that?" And I said, "Yeah, I hear that." And he said, "What do you think it is?" And I said, "I have no idea. It sounds like rocks being, you know, smashed together, clanked together." And we're trying to rationalize what is going on here. What are we hearing? Could it be antlers? You know, is it elk? Is it deer? Didn't make sense. Well, after a couple of minutes of this, coming closer, closer, and closer to us, it stops. And then right behind me, up in this area up here, we start hearing what sounds like sticks being broken, something bipedal, possibly. Well, after a couple of minutes of that, you know, kind of going back and forth up on this little knoll here, this little hill, it stops. And then I hear what I think it's percussive, you know, some sort of knock, but I couldn't be sure. A couple of minutes go by and it's kind of quiet. And then I hear that rock clank sounds start up again, but it's moving away. It's moving away to the point where eventually it just dissipates and I don't hear it anymore. Mitch and I are talking and he's going, I guess it's gone or whatever. So we go to sleep. And so next morning we wake up, make our breakfast, and then head off down the trail, the right direction this time. We didn't get lost. We actually made it to our quota, our lakes that we're supposed to be fishing. And we fished all day. Same thing. We go to bed about 11:30. Ian, who's definitely afraid of bears, he typically would build a huge fire. So the second night, the fire was even bigger, which was off in this direction. He built this humongous, obnoxious, ridiculous looking fire. We go to bed about the same time, 11:30, maybe a little bit closer to midnight, once again with plans to go out the next day and go fishing again. So 1:32 in the morning, the second night, once again, I hear that same sound. Sounds like rocks coming down the trail, coming from this direction over here. My buddy Mitch is awake again. He goes, "Hey, it's back." And I said, "I know, I can hear it." Ian, over here in this general area, was in his tent snoring away. He didn't hear anything. And so as it's getting closer and closer, I'm thinking, what can this be? This is not an elk. This is not a deer. This isn't, I mean, what could it be? Is there somebody out here messing with us? I mean, which I found ridiculous. And then it stopped. Once again, it got really close to camp and stopped. And then up behind us, once again, you hear the cracking and breaking of branches. But this time, it escalated. It was much louder this time around. It was breaking stuff. I couldn't tell at the time if it was breaking branches off the trees or stepping on them. It was just so loud. It sounded like an elephant going through the woods. Mitch is kind of going, "Whoa, crap, what is this?" And I'm thinking the same thing, what is going on here? And then it stops, and there's silence. And then right behind me, up the hill here, 5 really, really powerful percussives, really powerful wood knocks, what you may call power knocks. Bam! Bam, 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 bam. It echoed in this little valley here. It echoed around this area tremendously. That was freaky by itself. The sheer power of the knocks was freaky. What really freaked me out was that in my tent, underneath my tent, I mean, literally I'm on my back, my heart's in my head, and I can feel the vibration of these knocks. They were so powerful. I literally was paralyzed with fear. I don't mind saying that. I was paralyzed with fear because I thought, what the frick? Whatever this is came back. And don't get me wrong, at this time I'm thinking, could this be what I think it is? I mean, I'm not gonna lie about that. I thought, could it be? What could be the tree like that? Well, Ian, guess what? Ian's now awake. Ian, the guy that's been snoring the last 2 nights, is now awake. And he's freaking out. He goes, what is this? And I said, shut up, shut up. Right after that, back here once again, I hear something come through the trees up high. And it's just hitting branches. And then thud, right next to my buddy Mitch's tent, over here closest to the lake. When it hit the ground, I knew instantly what it was. That was a rock. So I knew that something had tossed a rock from behind us down here and hit the ground. A little bit smaller than a softball, but really close to a softball-sized rock. Well, right then I was pretty confident what we were dealing with, based on the years of research I've done and people I've talked to, and never had anything like that happen in my life. Ian is freaking out. And I had done something stupid. I'd given Ian a 9mm during the day to calm his nerves. Said, hey, no more pots and pans, all that junk. Here's a gun. But I was afraid that he might come out blasting. After all this stuff happened, and he was freaking out. I mean, he's a city boy. He's from Boston. He's never really camped. I was just paralyzed with fear. But I walked myself out of it. I calmed my breathing down, and I walked myself out of it going, well, you're still alive. Nothing's happened to you. And whatever this is, if it wanted to hurt you, it would have done it by now. So I calmed myself down. I said, you need to get that gun away from Ian. So I sit up on my knees and unzip my tent. The fire's still going. I'm looking around. I didn't want to get out of my tent. And just when I was just about to step out of my tent, I noticed movement almost to my 12 o'clock. And what I see is something standing behind a tree, but swaying back and forth. I see a hand, an arm, a shoulder, and every once in a while, a head. And it's just doing this. And it looks massive. It looks absolutely massive. It freaked me out. And I'm looking at this thing. It seemed like an eternity. I remember thinking, God, they are real. Holy crap. They're real. I mean, I'll never forget that moment. I'll never forget that moment when I saw things swaying back and forth. I don't know if it saw me or heard the tent unzip or whatever, but it just took its arm down, went down by its side, it peeled around and walked up the trail or off trail, and it was gone. Ian, at this time, was quiet. Mitch was quiet. I could hear Mitch breathing heavily, but he was quiet. I mean, they were quiet. And I watched this thing walk off, and I sat there and I just zipped my tent up and I just sat down, and it was just quiet. You could hear a pin drop. I don't know why I sat back. It was kind of a thing like I knew that it was done. I knew that it was it in my head. I don't know if I've ever shared that before. I haven't even thought about that till now. But I just kind of knew that when it walked away, that was it. Maybe, and I didn't know if I was right or wrong, but in my head I thought, okay. I didn't feel the pull to go get the gun from Ian. I just felt like sitting there and soaking it in and hoping that it didn't come back, honestly. Well, as soon as daylight hit, we collectively, without speaking, packed up our camp and headed out of here. And that was it. We headed home, almost quiet the whole time. I was still in shock because I thought, I've been at this for years, but it just blew my mind that 3 guys out here doing our thing just had a 2-night experience with Sasquatch. That right there solidified to me that these suckers are real. They're real. They're real. Absolutely real. 100%. Blew my freaking mind. And really launched me into what I'm doing now with the Olympic project, period. That really explained a lot to me and totally shifted my direction in life. Not just in life, but also within my research.
While Shane had always had an interest in the subject prior to this encounter, he became far more fervent in his search for the Sasquatch after it, eventually leading him to be a part of the Olympic project a year later.
So I got involved in the Olympic project back in 2012. I had met Derek Randalls down at an event called the Hopsquatch, put on by Guy Edwards down in Portland, Oregon. And I got to talking with Derek and decided to go on one of his public Olympic project expeditions. And Derek Randalls and I hit it off right off the bat. We were very like-minded. We had the same sense of humor. We both loved the outdoors, hiking and camping. And we both kind of had the same ideas as to Sasquatch and how the research should be conducted. I was very impressed with the Olympic project and its data collection. And it wasn't before too long that Derek asked me to join the project.
Both Shane and Derek had their first encounter with the Sasquatch while they were adults. But one member of the Olympic Project had an experience at a much younger age.
What made you believe in Bigfoot?
Well, my very possible sighting in 1986. It was my brother's birthday weekend, and we were going to go up to Big Bear for a skiing trip. My parents didn't reserve a hotel or get a place to stay. We drove up there Friday night. Everything was booked. My dad finally found this small cabin to stay in for the night. We unloaded the car. It started to snow. It was around 1 o'clock in the morning by the time we found a place. We got up there about 10:30, I think. Drove around for a while looking for a place to stay. So it started to snow. We're from the city. We live by the beach. We're like surf kids. Snow's a novelty. Hey, let's go make snowballs and have a snowball fight because we don't see snow. We were around the backside of this cabin on this road. There were street lights. The other side's woods. We're playing snowball fight, just kids, normal kids type stuff, laughing, giggling, throwing snowballs. And then someone noticed somebody or something standing on the road watching us. And I was fully aware of what Bigfoot was, but not in my wildest imagination did I think you'd come in contact with a Bigfoot or see something ever in history, you know. So I was a pretty smart aleck kid, smart aleck teenager, and I yelled at it, "Hey, if you're a man, say something." Because we had just stopped in our tracks and everyone's just focused on this thing. And it's standing on the road under the street light. It didn't move. It's just standing there, still. And it's snowing. And we're like, "Hey, if you're a man, say something." Just standing there. I think I yelled something else at it. And then we got scared and ran in the cabin. And that's the extent of it. My parents are like, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" You know, so we're like, we just saw something. That was it. It was really fast. We went to sleep. Next day we got up and just went skiing. I really didn't know what it was. And then looking back, some people have suggested it was a homeless guy. Some people have suggested it was a guy drunk or on drugs, but it makes no sense to me. This thing was easily as big or bigger than my dad. My dad was 6'4", and it was much thicker. So I don't see what else it could have been. There was no development around. There was like another cabin to the left of us, but everything was shut down. It's 1:30 in the morning and snowing. It's dark. And just the way it was watching us and just stood there and didn't even respond, that's what freaked us out. It's like, this thing is it's not normal. So we ran. Yeah. I couldn't see any details, couldn't see any facial features, but the full silhouette under the street light and standing there against the white snow on the road, it's quite obvious standing there. So.
What was the first time you heard about Bigfoot?
Oh, as far back as I can remember, probably when I was like 4 or 5 years old. Aside from that, I'd already been reading books and checking out books in the library, like in elementary school and junior high, and you have all the documentaries on TV, and then you have the Patterson Gimlin film. So
Todd's interest in the Sasquatch as a child, combined with his very possible sighting of one in Southern California, led him to start researching the phenomenon on his own.
Well, as soon as I got the internet, I was looking at Bigfoot stuff and reading reports and reading a lot of books. But as far as getting in a vehicle with the purpose of going to look for these things, the first time I did that was probably 97, 94. I can't remember exactly, because I would print out reports from different websites and drive up to the mountains and go to those locations. And that was my kind of entry into research. And I was alone doing it. I didn't know anybody. So I would go by myself quite a bit and just walk around in the woods or walk around the mountains and looking for tracks or anything. And, you know, the chances to find anything are like slim to none. You're basically just going in the woods, walking around looking for stuff. Real, what I would call research, even though we don't have a type specimen, with the intent purpose of going to an area where these things are known to be, really started for me in 2008, I would say, where I actually was meeting people and going to areas with actual gear and like on a Bigfoot trip, you know, a Sasquatch trip versus what I was doing in the past. I talked to Shane Corson in 2013 about Southern California because I was listening to his podcast and I knew he was from Southern California originally. So I messaged him on Facebook and told him about my Big Bear stuff in Southern California, and we talked on the phone. And when I moved to Washington in 2015, a couple years later, I got in touch with him. He was living in Oregon at the time. I was invited to Beachfoot, met Derek and some of the OP people, went on an expedition, and then the rest is history.
Once they met, Todd and Shane became fast friends. But before their iconic friendship, Todd had yet another experience, this time in the Pacific Northwest.
You hungry, Shane?
I am hungry. I wish there was tamales.
So we are up in the Mount Rainier area. My family and I had just moved here in August of 2015. It was November of 2015. We came up here to cut a Christmas tree. It was the weekend before or the weekend of Thanksgiving. I don't remember exactly. I'd have to look back. We were driving up and down this road looking for a small tree to cut. And we were driving back this way. And we passed this little turnout. I saw some smaller trees off in the distance there. So I told my wife, hey, there's some small trees right there. Let's park here and get out and cut them. Okay, because we've been up here for hours. Whole place covered in snow. We parked about right here where Shane's truck is. Get out like normal. The kids go running towards the trees, and I said, hey, wait for me. Because I was going to put my gun on. I said, we're in Washington. There's cougars here, bears, you know, stay with me. My kids were little. So I got the gun, started to put it on. And as I walked this way, my wife and kids were right here. As I walked this way, something in the trees over there started moaning. And it was loud. It was echoing all through the woods here. And my wife was like, what is that? And I'm like, I don't know. Let's see what happens. I wasn't really nervous or scared or anything at first. So I'm just like, it's an elk or something. Whatever, I got a gun. Let's go get a tree. So they're right here. I'm walking this way and I have the saw and my gun. And the trees I want to get are over there. They're a lot bigger now, but when I got to this area, this thing started moaning more and even louder. And it was echoing. And then my wife's like, forget this. We're going back to the vehicle. We don't know what that is. It could be a bear. I said, that's not a bear. It's not an elk. I didn't know what it was. So she and the kids got scared. They went back in the vehicle. And I started thinking, this could be a Squatch. I'm excited. Like, this is cool. I want to see this thing. So they got in the vehicle and they started the engine and they're like, let's go, let's get out of here. I'm like, hold on, I want to see this thing. It sounded like it was right there. You see those two trees and see the small firs right behind them? It sounded like it was directly in front of me, but I couldn't see it. And they're yelling at me, get in the car, get in the car. I'm like, hold on, I want to go down and see this thing. So I had my weapon out and I'm standing like getting closer and closer and I'm like looking straight ahead. And then I don't know, the echo part of it started sounding like, am I sure it's in front of me or is it to my left? The echo was so big, I couldn't really tell where the sound was coming from. So then I started going, oh shit, is it on my left behind this tree? And then I said, okay, I'm gonna get back in the car. I get back in the car and I got in a huge argument with my wife. I said, this is a golden opportunity. If this is a Sasquatch, I can see it right now. I want a daytime sighting. And they were freaking out, man. And that's the gist of it. But something else I forgot to mention, I could hear this thing breathing. It sounded huge. The lungs, I could hear it breathing, and it sounded, I know a lot of people say this on podcasts and reports, it sounded gurgly, like congested. And that's what made me start to think this might have been a Sasquatch. But it was just the weirdest experience. And I was pretty mad when I got in the vehicle because I wanted to pursue this thing. You know, I don't know what would have happened. I don't think it was any known animal. I think it was a Sasquatch, but I will never know because everyone started freaking out and made me get in the car. Hindsight, I might actually went down there and try to get closer, but you never know what you're dealing with either. I mean, I told you it was really, really fast, really short. I didn't really know anybody in Washington at the time. We'd only been here 3 months. I'd only talked to Shane on the phone. I hadn't seen him in person yet. And I didn't really have anybody to tell about it. You know, it was kind of just our little family thing. And then met these guys, told them about it. But that was like my first thing in Washington.
Are you scared being here now?
No. Like I said, we do so much in the woods. I don't really fear much in the woods. Now, if stuff starts to go off, like you're getting Bigfoot activity around your camp with knocks or yelling or rock throwing, that could be a little bit tense, but no. Nothing in the woods scares me anymore. I can't even say that I wasn't even scared that day. My wife and kids were. I wasn't. I wanted to see the thing. Maybe I'm crazy. I don't know. But I really thought that thing was in the trees right here, and I wanted to run down and check it out, no matter what happened. So, to me, it's a lost opportunity.
Go walk away.
What are you doing, Corson?
Thing out of the way.
It would only seem logical for a person having seen something out of the ordinary to begin to investigate what they saw. But this is often not the case. For every person who has a sighting and then later becomes a researcher of the Sasquatch topic, there are at least 10 people who either never discuss it with anyone or even have a desire to share that experience. For many people, to admit that they saw something like a Sasquatch would be to openly declare themselves as crazy and untrustworthy. The loss of friends, or possibly even their livelihoods, are too much of a cost for many people, especially today. With full knowledge of this societal stigma, why would anyone not only declare that they've seen one, but that they go out in the woods to look for Sasquatch on a regular basis?
You know, I don't spend an incredible amount of time looking for Sasquatch, But I do spend a lot of time looking for trace evidence or evidence of Sasquatch. Of course, we're out there trying to obtain video footage and thermal footage. But why? Because it's a mystery, and I love mysteries. And this is one of the greatest mysteries in the world. Every time out in the woods, you have that chance of obtaining something new, whether it's audio related, visually related, therm camera, or you find a track impression, footprint, handprint, hair. And I get to do this with the people I love to work with. And we have an absolutely great time. But why? Because it's a passion. It's almost as much of a job as one could have without getting paid, but it is a job or a hobby that I absolutely love. I wouldn't trade it for the world.
I want to look into its eyes. It's just a personal goal of mine. I don't care about proof. I don't care about the public. I don't care about YouTube. I want to film one in the daytime so I can watch it. I've said that before. I want to see one in the daytime, a clear, close-up sighting. I want to see its face. I want to see its eyes. That's mainly the reason I do this. And that's been my goal for a long time. I haven't got there yet. What's going to happen if it happens? Is it going to freak me out? Maybe. I don't know. I really don't know what's going to happen. Am I going to stop after that? Who knows? I don't think so, because you're still in the woods, you're enjoying nature. Sometimes being in these woods, in my opinion, there's no better place to be when you're on foot and you're off trail with nature. The air's clean. The weather's not always great, but when you're having great weather and you're in the Pacific Northwest, it's one of the best places on earth, period. With no cell phone coverage, no vehicles, it's like complete escapism. You escape your home life and work and bills and all that bullshit. That's another reason to do it, to get away from it all. I'm sure most people can understand that. People do different things to do that, but you know how good it feels if you're backpacking and you don't have any cell coverage for 3 days? It's great.
What if it's not real, though?
Sasquatch?
Yeah.
It is. There's no what if it's not real. Period.
If it's not real, that's not even an option for me. I know these things are real. Absolutely 110%. I mean, it's not even a question. I've already passed that a long time ago. That ship has sailed. I'm looking as to the when, the why, and the how. How did they survive? What are they eating? Where did they go? Are they in groups? Are they solo? That's the questions, As I go along this marathon, knowing that these things are out there, I'm excited about the stuff we're obtaining.
With such resolute certainty of the existence of Sasquatch, brought on by personal experience and thousands of hours of research, one has to ponder on how their lives might be different if they had decided not to pursue the Sasquatch.
Honestly, I don't think my life would be a lot different because I was already a wilderness person. I was already a woods person. I was already a hunter, and I still am all of those things. I think my life's better because of it. I think a lot of researchers would probably argue that point, but I don't, because I've met some amazing people, and I've been able to work with, Dr. Meldrum, Dr. Bendenagel. I've got to meet John Green and all these people, Grover Krantz. I've been lucky enough to share time with them, work with several of them, and then just the people that are in the Olympic project, they're like family. And I've just met the biggest array of wonderful people. So I think it's enhanced my life. I don't think it's detracted from my life. I think there was about a 10-year period where I was gone too much. I started a business and put a staff in place with the idea of being able to do that and to be gone a lot and still make money. And I did exactly that. If a sighting happened anywhere up on the West Coast, I would go. And then I started working with Dr. Meldrum in, I believe it was 1996 or 97. And whenever he would have a good sighting, he would say, here's the sighting, here's the guy's name, here's his address, and I could drop whatever I was doing and go and interview the guy and hike the area and look for tracks and do all this stuff. So it was fun. It was a blast. The only regret I have is it's probably gone a little too much for that period of time. But when I got a handle on that and I stopped putting Bigfoot first in my life, life came back to normal more. And it's been fun. It's been a blast, even though you're ridiculed and a lot of people don't believe what you're doing. It's been a blast, and I'm out here all the time in the woods with like-minded people. So what more can you ask for?
Well, my life would be very different in some aspects and very much the same in others. I'm a family man. I work, and I got a daughter I'm raising. I got an amazing wife, and I spend a lot of time with them, and I bring them out camping with me. I guess, actually, quite honestly, I guess my life wouldn't be that different because I love to hunt, I love to hike, I love to camp, I love to fish, I love hanging out with my friends in the woods, I love taking my family out to the woods. I'd probably just be more of a naturalist, I'd just be out videoing and being around nature. Same thing I'm doing now, I just have a different type of purpose. I'm actively investigating the Sasquatch. So if you just take the Sasquatch out of my life, that's it. It'd just be Sasquatch out of my life. I'm still going to be out doing what I do and what I love, hiking, exploring, with the people I love to work with. I would have different friends. Obviously, I wouldn't have met, amazing people like, probably most likely not like Chris Spencer and Todd and Derek. I would have a total different friendship group, I'm sure. But I would still be doing the same thing I'm doing now, minus the Sasquatch.
I'd have more money and a hell of a lot more time for other activities. It costs a lot of money, taking time off work, buying gear, camping gear. It's a lot of time and money and a lot of effort. And a lot of times it's not even fun. I love being in the woods. I love the outdoors, hiking. I love all of it, but you can come to the point where you kind of have burnout. Can you talk about that?
Roof and eating pizza at my dining room table and studying this cast, trying to figure out, what to do with it. And I was way out of my league academic-wise, even just listening to all these PhDs, I just pretty much made them food. I just kind of listened from the other room. But it was amazing. There's 3 signatures on the Skookum cast, mine, Rick Knowles, and Leroy Fish's, because we all co-owned it after one of the deals on this expedition was whatever evidence we found was ours to keep. Well, Leroy died, and then the cast ended up in the hands of Rick Knoll, who still has it to this day. And then I started seeing it on TV, and nobody asked me if it was okay, and legally I still own half of it. So that pissed me off, and I really didn't want any money out of it, but I just wanted, hey, is this cool if we do this? And I didn't get that. And it really irritated me, and then there was a big rift with Rick Knoll and I and myself and the BFRO and all that stuff, so that was one of them.
How do you work through that?
I think the way that you work through it is just to get older and become more mature, honestly. It's like anything else. And self-help 101, happiness is a choice, and so is anger. Nobody in the world can make you angry. You allow yourself to get angry over a situation. And same thing, happiness comes from you. You can choose to be happy, you can choose to be upset. So I just had to make choices that I just wouldn't let stuff get to me anymore. And that's pretty much what I did.
In January of 2024, I had the opportunity to travel to one of Washington State's largest Bigfoot conferences, called Squatch Fest. In attendance were the main members of the Olympic Project, Shane, Todd, Chris Spencer, and Rebecca Slick, as well as other notable researchers like Dr. Jeff Meldrum, Matt Pruitt, and Cliff Barrickman. In contrast to the cultural stigma of people who have Sasquatch experiences, events like Squatch Fest create an atmosphere that allows for people to come forward and share their experiences without fear of ridicule. Additionally, people come to celebrate what has become a cultural icon, celebrating in a shared interest in Sasquatch.
What's up, friend of the OP, Eddie Sanchez?
Well, slept well. Like, we almost had a sighting this morning.
What do you mean? Oh, there's one right there. Smile, you're on TV.
This is what I hate. He does this all the time.
However, these events serve another purpose as well, providing an opportunity for serious researchers to share ideas and information to the general public in an accessible way. In the age of misinformation, some researchers consider public speaking a critical aspect of their efforts.
Thanks for everybody coming. I appreciate it. We've had some amazing speakers so far. Obviously, you got Dr. Miller and you got Ken Gerhard and Michael Freeman. Amazing presentation. If you don't watch that presentation come out, you know, if you're very much a skeptical non-believer, then there's probably something wrong. There's so much information that his dad collected, and Michael does a fantastic job showcasing that and building in some blanks, and so.
That's a catch-22, because I don't know. For me, you know, if it weren't for the fact that I think academics and academia, those in sciences, should be looking at this further, it wouldn't be that important to me. But it is important that really solid investigators, researchers, enthusiasts, whatever you want to call us, them, they have to maintain the scientific method, and they have to be very skeptical. And there's just too many people claiming too many things with too little evidence. And nothing to back it up, and they don't maintain the scientific method. So I think those doing really good, solid investigations, testing their hypothesis, should be in the public's eye, whether that's on social media or on a program. They should be highlighted because science needs to take a bigger look at this. There is a Sasquatch phenomenon. There is a living, breathing entity out there.
I don't think there's a lot of room in this field for bullshit. There's not a lot of room in this field for fabrication, you know, because the minute you start fabricating evidence or you start BSing somebody about anything, the whole adventure just goes downhill. So I've always been one to just keeping it real, and a lot of people just don't keep it real. Some do, but a lot don't.
This year is my 30th year of being a Bigfooter, basically. You know, in 1994, I started going out into the woods and doing things. And then really, back then it was because I thought it was fun and cool and kind of funny in a way. And of course, I like the outdoors. And I still think that it is fun and it is cool and it is kind of funny in a way that I'm still involved in all this stuff. But my relationship with the subject has changed over the years. I would say that in the beginning days, it was about trying to find the evidence and proving something to somebody, and it's certainly not that anymore. I'm not trying to prove anything to anybody at this point. Like, I know they're real. Who cares what other people think, is my thought. But I think when I got on the TV show Finding Bigfoot, I think that's when it really accelerated my relationship change with the subject, because I realized at the time, and I took it very seriously, and I still do, that little kids are watching. You know, I'm a Bigfooter today because I was once a little boy watching these schlockumentaries in the 1970s. And I know that there are young people, back then I knew that there were young people watching this TV show and hoping someday to do something. I mean, the next Jane Goodall could be watching Finding Bigfoot, you know, and after Discovery, they could be working in the field of Bigfoot studies, like legitimately. So I took that responsibility very seriously. And I still do, because I was an elementary school teacher before I was on the TV show. And guiding young people is an important part of my life, I guess, in some ways. And the TV show kind of shook me a little bit, saying, dude, you can't screw around too much. Like, you gotta kind of be on the up and up all the time. You gotta watch what you say, which I'm not very good at. You gotta do all this stuff, because there might be a little cliff out there someday that you might change his life. And today, I think it's more important than ever, because I'm still at this position of leadership or something in the community. I mean, I don't like to think of it like that, but again, I don't have a choice. And there's so much nonsense in our field, honestly. There's just so much garbage out there. So if I want the subject to be taken seriously, I mean, I can still have fun with it, don't get me wrong, but if I want the subject to be taken seriously as a legitimate field of inquiry, then I need to present it that way. You know, I'm not going to go with portals and interdimensional shape-shifting UFO writing whatevers, man. We're gonna start with biology, because that's where science is. And I think that it's my duty to give something back to the subject that has given me so much, and to represent it well publicly is honestly the least I can do.
It is undeniable that Sasquatch has permeated pop culture in North America, and perhaps even beyond. And while the majority of the world considers the Sasquatch to be non-existent, there are those who dedicate so much of their lives trying to prove its existence. An illogical and unwise life path to choose, according to many. But still, people do it. Over the past several years, as I've traveled across North America investigating the Sasquatch, many researchers have confided in me that they feel compelled to pursue this undiscovered hominid in the woods. They feel like they've buckled their seatbelt as life pulls them towards whatever their ultimate destination is. Relating to this feeling myself, it is only recently that I have discovered that this feeling has a name: the Sasquatch curse.
There are many traditions that say that seeing a Sasquatch is a bad thing. It's a bad omen. You're going to die if you see one, or something bad is going to happen to someone you love. There's other versions of the Sasquatch curse that have leaked into modern day thought as well. And I think there's some truth to it, but it's not a supernatural curse in that sort of way. It's something to do with, I think, the people who become interested in Sasquatches. The interest itself has a way of taking over, essentially, taking over one's life. I think the researchers, and myself included, especially when I was younger, it's easy to become obsessed with this, you know, and you look at the horsemen, you know, DeHinden and Green and Byrne and Krantz and all the early time. I think that they had a touch of this as well. I mean, Rene chased these things for decades and decades, like 50, 60 years or more. I don't even know how long. And he never even saw one, but it took over his life. I think that happens to a lot of people with Sasquatch research. But at the same time, it's not something that you choose to do. Like, I choose to be obsessed with this animal that nobody else says is real. That's not a logical choice. In some ways, I feel like it chooses you. Like, I personally, in the position I find myself now, at least in the Bigfoot community, you know, like the TV show and the museum, and I get a lot of emails, and, you know, people put me on a pedestal for whatever reason. Like, I didn't choose this. This isn't like something a sane person would choose. I kind of feel like I've been tapped for this, and it's not like, oh, God chose me, like I'm special. It's just like, why would you choose this? This is crazy. I can make a lot more money doing this other stuff, but I'll tell you, I can't make what little money I do make having more fun. I love this.
I do kind of feel like this subject chooses you. I think it chooses you when you have an experience. And then it's interesting, it's almost like a case study to watch people after they have an experience, how it affects their life, which direction they go. It's a trip, man. For me, it was like when somebody dies, you go through all these different stages. You go through hurt, and then sadness, or anger. Finally, you hit acceptance, you know, with a bunch of stuff in between. With a sighting, it's the same way. You see this, and you're afraid to tell anybody because they're going to think you're crazy. And then after so much time goes, that completely shifts. And it's like, well, I need to prove this. I just got to prove this. And then, again, there's several steps to this process until you get to where I'm at now. You know, I'm 58 years old. I've been doing this for just shy of 40 years. And I've just accepted it now. I don't care what people think. I could care less if anybody believes me or not. I've shied away from doing film stuff, shied away from interviews. I don't speak at conferences anymore. Now Bigfoot, I do it on my terms when I feel like doing it. And to me, it's the best out of all of it, because now I'm still into the subject. I'm still rabidly interested, but it doesn't run my life, and I do it when I feel like doing it. I just remember when I needed to prove it to the world. You know, I needed to prove it to verify my own sanity. And then you leave that behind, and it's like, I don't care. I just don't care anymore. You know, I know they're real, and everybody that I work closely with knows they're real. Everybody in the Olympic projects had an experience. You know, so it's not a group of, you know, people that are hoping. It's a group of people that know. that are just simply trying to learn more. So it's cool. I like it.
We come right back to the basics again, to the cynical, ruthless point, and this is produce the creature. And everything else is all nice, it's interesting, makes life very exciting and so on, but that's about all it does.
Obsession certainly has its downsides. One of the four horsemen of Sasquatchery, the Swiss-born René Dahinden, spent most of his life searching for the elusive creature. His interest quickly became a vehement fixation to possess the best evidence of Sasquatch. As a result of his zealotry, Dahinden's family left him, and he ended up living in poverty in a trailer on a gun range in Canada. However, Dahinden exemplifies the extreme end of Sasquatch research. Few, if any, get as obsessed with the topic as he did, and many people, including members of the Olympic Project, express much healthier attitudes towards their research.
No, this was definitely my choosing, because I can get out anytime I want, no matter what I do. There's no Bigfoot curse for me. When I grew up in Scotland, I was already interested in this. I would have ended up, if I'd stayed in Scotland, I probably would have still been interested in Sasquatch and Bigfoot. I might have been studying the Nessie, I don't know, Nessie or some sort of other cryptid. But I chose this. I did a lot of hard work to get to where I'm at, and I chose my paths. I have a great life, great family, a great supporting cast. Like I said before, I went and traded for the world. It's an amazing, I'm very humbled to be involved and know the people I know and work with, but it's an amazing journey that I'm gonna see through. You're not gonna see me one day up and quit, even if they're discovered or never discovered. It's still a mystery. It's one that I can't let go of.
I was into this topic as a kid in elementary school, and I thought it was just the coolest thing if these things were out there. Reading the books and the reports as, a preteen, I thought it was just amazing. Like, it captivates your imagination. Once this thing gets in your blood and you find things and see things, it's really hard to stop. It's a constant pursuit. I wouldn't say it's an addiction, but for some people it could be. For me, it's a hobby. Some people in my personal life think I'm obsessed with Sasquatch. I don't really think I am, but that's them looking in. But me, compared to some Bigfoot people I know, I'm not nearly as deep into it. Everything I've done, I feel like I just kind of fell into. It's just kind of happened. I'm into all kinds of other things like racing and music and other hobbies, and I've told Shane and Chris, this is still a hobby to me. It's not my life, and I will do it as long as I enjoy it. If I'm not enjoying it, there's no reason to do it. I'm not going to be the person that brings one in for proof.
The life of a Sasquatch researcher is far from a simple one. From physically exhausting oneself during field research to engaging with the public at conventions, the pursuit of Sasquatch can be both tiresome and unrewarding. The potential for obsession is far too real, and as many have said, it can take over your life if you let it. But there are many who balance that line, taking care not to burn themselves out on the topic and providing for their families, while at the same time treating the subject with respect. Level-headed researchers like Cliff and the members of the Olympic Project provide an example of what good research is and bring us furthest along the road to discovery.